Welcome to a Tuesday IB Nation Sports Talk up and rolling along with Jesse Stiers. I am Sean Stiers. How are you today this afternoon, sir?
I'm doing well. I don't know if I told you, but I took a sick day at work yesterday.
Oh, you didn't tell me.
So today was my first actual day back at work, but it's the last week, so I was like,
3-2 flu? 3-2 flu?
Yeah, exactly.
You ever heard it called that? You still call it that?
So I was like, I did my best Ferris Bueller's day off yesterday, and it was a day off, but it wasn't, because did a lot of cleaning, did a lot of like chores, did some birthday shopping, did some grocery shopping, got a new propane tank, drove Naomi around to a bunch of different places. So we got a lot done, and then ended up playing some sand volleyball yesterday evening. And then, we took the dogs on a really long, like 4-mile walk as well. So it's like, we got a lot done yesterday, even though
I guess I don't blame you. You got to use that sick day. I mean, this is your last week at your current employer. You roll over to the new address next week. So what are they going to do? Fire you?
That's what I said. I texted my friend and I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to take today off. I'm feeling pretty sick. I was like, what's the worst they're going to do? Fire me?
That's right. I mean, you could be Bryce Young. I guess I have to clarify which Bryce Young, because I guess it's officially better to be defensive end Notre Dame freshman Bryce Young than it is Carolina Panthers former number 1 overall draft pick Bryce Young, benched for Andy Dalton. Man, I mean,
that's tough news right there.
What kind of life is that? You got benched for Andy Dalton. Like, people want to talk about how bad Jerry Jones is as an owner, and there's a great argument that he is a bad owner, but he doesn't hold a candle to that guy in Carolina. I will tell you that.
Mr. Tepper?
Yes. I mean, the guy wanted Bryce Young to begin with. All they traded away to the Bears to move up to the number 1 pick, because he had to have Bryce Young. He couldn't have waited. And then they get Bryce Young, and here it is. 2 years later, they've already benched him, and Andy Dalton is the best quarterback in Dallas in the last 20 years. He was there 4 years ago, and it's like I didn't realize he still had a pulse coming out of Dallas. I will tell you that.
Well, the funny thing is Carolina tried Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield at quarterback, and now both of those guys are on 2-0 teams, the Minnesota Vikings and
how about
the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
How about Sam Darnold, by the way, beating our old boy Brent's Brock Purdy in Minneapolis?
A lot of upset. This last weekend in the NFL was – I knew it was fishy when I was looking at the lines before the game started on Sunday, and I was like, man, there's just a ton of favorites going on here. I was like, this just – it had that feeling that there was going to be a lot of upsets. And to me, it's like, I don't even really call them upsets, because
it's week 2.
You don't know what a team is week 2. And it goes back to my age-old argument of why I hate preseason college football rankings. You just don't know, right? And so it's like, let me get them the first month of football before we see, before we call these games upsets. It's like, for all we know, the Saints could be the best team, in the NFC this year. I mean, they've looked like it with Kubiak at offensive coordinator.
So far.
So
I don't feel nearly as bad about what happened in Dallas after seeing Sam Darnold and the boys beat the 49ers.
Oh, man. Watching
Kirk and then last night. I mean, full glory. Jalen Hurts, how overrated can you be? You just found out watching that garbage last night.
Primetime.
I love it.
Interception when you need him the most.
Yep, there
put a little blitz on him, and interception is inbound.
Or buddy. I mean, that's the way it goes. A lot of people love it when Dallas loses. That's fine. Chris checking in to remind us that he said Notre Dame was going to beat the brakes off Purdue, and I remember him chiming in with that. Didn't see it coming. I mean, Chris, you are one of the 1% who saw that coming. Like, if you really saw that coming, I mean, man.
I think I had the closest prediction. I was 30-6. I was one off.
You did of the,
and I think I had.
Yeah, you were the most lopsided.
I think I gave Notre Dame the most points. Obviously, I didn't think they'd get 66, but I was right on the. I thought the Notre Dame defense would show up, and I thought they did in a tremendous way. And I just didn't expect that offensive output, but I also didn't expect Notre Dame to just run at will on Purdue, and that was really the entire difference in the game.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what the offense looks like, all that on today's show. I did rewatch the first half when all the starters were in today, and we started off yesterday, Vince and I, talking a little bit about Brad Nessler and Gary Danielson calling the game for CBS. I actually, again, like there were some things I could nitpick more about the second half about how prepared they were, in the event that, because like you never know.
They were messing up on a lot of names.
Yeah, you never know what game is going to turn into a blowout, and that's, preparation. You're doing a network TV game. You got to be ready to go. First half, I actually thought they did a good job, like with the exception of once they threw out the Gary Danielson package and talked about, him being a former Purdue quarterback. I mean, all you're doing is setting yourself up for everyone to just think of him as a Purdue guy from then on, and everyone's going to assume bias for the rest of the
Well, and it didn't help that they went into the backstory that he was 0-3 against Notre Dame, and they showed the footage of kind of how they blew the one game that Purdue probably should have won. And yeah, I mean, it was I like how he took it in swing though. It's like what are you supposed to talk about when it's like 30-something to 0 or whatever the halftime score was, right? Like I thought
overall it wasn't a bad I mean, there are two guys who've been doing it forever. I feel like they're pretty good. They're pretty good. And
I like listening to Nessler. You usually don't get to listen to him because the SEC dominates the CBS network. It's very infrequent that Notre Dame ends up on the CBS network. And so to hear kind of those SEC voices is what I would call them is pretty cool. It's a switch up from kind of the same old, names and voices that we hear for Notre Dame football. And I'm not saying those are bad. I'm just saying it's nice to hear some of those other guys every now and then.
Sure, absolutely. TD4ND, we are going to see the whiteboard today. Jesse will be bringing that out as we go on through the conversation, as we kind of look at this Notre Dame offense, because that is the topic of conversation. Tommy says, did anyone else have a small issue with how Freeman wanted to close out the first half? Well, I mean, he handed the ball off and it turned into a 70-yard touchdown. So I realize maybe he just wanted to run out the clock, but
I mean, that's a Freeman thing.
Do you feel like when you're up 35-0, that's the time to start winging it with Riley Leonard out there to close the half? I don't know. I mean, I guess you could quibble either way. Tommy says before that. I mean, what happened before that? What am I missing? Remind me. Not taking the time. Oh, not taking the timeout. Well, yeah.
I mean, again, it's just Marcus Freeman.
That's kind of the way he's done things. That's kind of the way, he's done things. He has taken a more defensive approach in a lot of different ways.
Well, I mean, listen to his comments every time you ask him about the quarterback. Takes care of the ball, doesn't turn over the ball. Mm-hmm. Marcus Freeman doesn't want to give the other team an extra possession before half. And even if they don't score, I still find turnovers to be, a big momentum shift, a big confidence kind of shift of, okay, yeah, we're kind of getting beat down right now, but if we can find a way to, have a bright spot right before the half, I think those are oftentimes big momentum plays. So not allowing the other team to feel any sort of momentum, I think plays into it as well. Me personally, would I like to see a little bit more aggressiveness? Yeah, especially when your quarterback can run the ball like he does. Teams are going to get over aggressive, in the box. And I think it is an opportunity to kind of hit maybe some of those, quick passes essentially. So he is a bit too conservative for my taste, but I understand why he is like that.
What did you think of what you saw from the offense out there? We're going to, you're going to break some down with your whiteboard in a little bit. They ran for 362 yards, obviously. The passing game is, at this point, it is what it is, I think, because, I posted this story up on irishbreakdown.com, and when we post the stories at irishbreakdown.com, we also put them on the New Champions Lounge, and the title of the story is Old School Notre Dame Offense Moving Forward. I mean, what would you call this offense that we saw Saturday besides old school? when you run for 362 yards, the quarterback runs for 100 yards, another running back runs for 100 yards, and the other running back runs for 86 yards. That seems like a pretty old school look, at least an old school result to me, the way things turned out.
I think you could call it old school, or I like to call it the modern triple option is really the best way that I'm going to say it, because I mean, it still is a triple option offense. It's just not your standard typical under the center, Navy, Army, fullback, wing type triple option offense. It's a very modern, in my opinion, triple option offense.
Effective, crisp. I mean, people are obviously a lot more happy with it after seeing it, responsible for 59 points, not all 66, because obviously Boubacar Traore scored one of the touchdowns, but still 59 points is what they were responsible for. There are still plays to be made in the passing game, but I guess I would like we played the comments from Marcus Freeman yesterday. I asked him about, getting on the same page with Riley Leonard. Obviously they got there, but I asked him if the offense that we saw Saturday is the offense that we're going to see moving forward. I played this yesterday, but just kind of as a refresher, here's his response to that about, is this the offense going forward?
Yeah, that was the offense that we felt gave us the best chance to succeed versus Purdue. And that fit his skill set and what we thought he did best. This week we have to continue to do that in terms of what we feel will give the best chance for offense to succeed, including Riley versus this defense. It's a different defense than what we saw last week, and every week as you go into preparation, you have to take into consideration what your guys can do well, but also what's going to help you have success versus the defense you're going against.
So what do you think?
Yeah, I think that, what did we talk about, after they got done with Northern Illinois, is they didn't stick to what they were doing best, and that was running the ball. I thought that it was known that Purdue has a stinky run defense, and the best thing that this team can do right now is run the ball. So I think you'd be doing a disservice to your team and your quarterback if you didn't effectively run the ball. And I think the most important thing that Marcus Freeman said is, this isn't the amount of run, I think, will vary week to week. But again, since Purdue is so bad in the run defense, and I mean, we saw that they had like 200 combined rushing yards by halftime, right? And so I like the way that he said, this is a game plan. Every week is a new game plan. And they're going to find the best way that they think to attack these opposing defenses. And then even furthermore, what they're going to do is have plays that Riley Leonard is really good at executing. And I don't think that was the case against Northern Illinois. I think they maybe had a game plan, but obviously there were plays in there that Riley Leonard might not be comfortable with, or he might not be the best at yet. And so when it came down to Purdue, it says, okay, let's just get rid of all that extra, clutter and just weed this thing down to the things that Riley Leonard is really good at doing. And that's what they did. They did it and they couldn't be stopped. So I don't understand how you could potentially be upset about a team. I had a friend text me and say, of course we could run all over these teams. I don't agree with that. If that's the case, then why didn't they run all over Texas A&M? Why didn't they run all over Northern Illinois when they wanted to? I mean, this is still a Big Ten defense. They still have 11 guys out there, and to dominate them the way that Notre Dame did in the run game is impressive to me. And until they could stop it, I don't see why you'd want to go away from it.
Well, and look, there were some of those Riley Leonard runs where the original design of the play was for it to be a pass. He drops back, and there was a reference to Older Than Dirt with the comment that he made on that Champions Lounge post that I was talking about. He says one thing nobody brings up is, as opposed to Ian Book, for example, Riley Leonard has taken throws down the field, not a huge number and not very well yet. However, a couple or more a game, hit one of those or two and things will loosen up. We talked yesterday about he hit Jaden Greathouse in the hands. Greathouse has got to make that catch. Obviously, the interception was wildly underthrown. So two extremes in terms of what happened with some of the shots downfield. But not every time that Leonard has run, was it necessarily designed to be a pass play. We'll kind of I'll play this from Riley Leonard. Then I saw a comment that Jeremy made, and we'll get to that and any others as well. But Leonard, this is from after the game, his post-game press conference at Purdue about the meeting that he had with offensive coordinator Mike Denbrock, what they talked about leading up to the game.
The biggest thing is, he all week just constantly reminded me, I trust you. I got all the confidence in you. Like today before the game, he sent me a Bible verse. Those little things can go a long way in a player-coach relationship. I think that we sat down multiple times, and I was open with him. What plays do I love? What plays they got to go? If you call that, I'm running it or something. So, just being honest with each other, being vulnerable, and having open conversations is something that every offensive coordinator or quarterback have to have. And this week, we nailed it. He called the game perfectly, in my opinion. And, that's what gives me and the guys, all the confidence in the world.
So Riley Leonard says Mike Denbrock called the game perfectly. And I listened to his entire post-game from Saturday. Jeremy says Leonard said he told Denbrock if he calls something he didn't like, he will just run the ball. What are our thoughts on that? He didn't say that in that comment. And again, I listened to the whole thing. I never heard him say anything like that. So I'm not sure who is saying Leonard says that that's what he told Mike Denbrock, but I never heard him say anything like that in his comments. But just what Leonard said seems pretty basic to me. Use what the quarterback likes, weed out what he doesn't like / what doesn't work. I mean, doesn't that seem to just be pretty common sense?
Yeah, I do think that is a lot of common sense. And
oh my God, are you kidding me, Deke? I'm going to play this comment again. Okay, I'm going to play this one more time.
And the biggest thing is, he all week just constantly reminded me, I trust you. I got all the confidence in you. Like today before the game, he sent me a Bible verse. Those little things can go a long way in a player-coach relationship. I think that we sat down multiple times, and I was open with him. What plays do I love? What plays they got to go? If you call that, I'm running it or something. So, just being honest with each other, being vulnerable, and having open conversations is something that every offensive coordinator or quarterback have to have. And this week, we nailed it. He called the game perfectly, in my opinion. And, that's what gives me and the guys, the confidence in the world.
I mean, it sounded like he was joking when he said that, but he did say it. You call that I'm running or something, but I mean, I think, again, I think it was basically like, let's not put that in. Otherwise I'm just running the ball.
Yeah. I think he basically was saying, here's the plays I do and don't like. And then he's saying, if he calls something he doesn't like and he doesn't like it, then he's like, well, what am I going to do? Just, I'm going to run the ball or something. So, I honestly don't mind that mindset either, to be honest with you, because if Riley Leonard goes through his 1 and 2 progression and it's not there and you've got the legs that Riley Leonard does, I mean, I would rather him pick up 2-3 yards than force an incomplete pass that he's not confident in throwing at the end of the day, right? And I think that's the overall advantage that you have with Riley Leonard is, he's not going to be extra crisp in the passing game and he's not going to have the prettiest throws and, all of those things, but like Gary Danielson said on Saturday, there's not a lot of guys who can run the ball like Riley Leonard and be a true, dual threat quarterback essentially. And so rather than, take a sack or force a bad incompletion, I'm okay with Riley Leonard pulling that thing down and at least getting 2 to 3 yards and staying ahead of the chains.
No, absolutely. I mean, when you look at what he did and the way he was able to do it, and they mentioned it during the broadcast, and we've said it before, he's such a deceptive runner because the way he runs and those long strides that he has, it doesn't look like he's running as fast as he is, but like he gets that, like he covers ground in such a quick amount of time for a guy who doesn't look like a gazelle by any means out there. But I mean, he ends up with 100 yards and 3 touchdowns. Efficient anyway, throwing the ball 11 of 16 for 112 yards. And this is something that I noted that Anthony said the Knapp collision cost a deep touchdown. Yeah, I mean, that was when he was throwing for Bo Collins. I mean, it was just a few feet away from Collins. And if he doesn't run into Knapp, then, there's a deep shot right there that would have been 6 easy points. So I mean, I think the thing is there's still a lot of room to grow from a passing situation. Because there was a pass that he hit to Jaden Greathouse that would have been a nice gain of like 20 plus yards that ended up being called back. I think Knapp got flagged for holding on that one. But like even on that one, there was an easy crossing pattern where Eli Raridan is just dragging across the middle in man-to-man coverage, and everyone else is cleared out to the near side of the field where Greathouse is. If he just, makes that, and it was right in front of him, but he never looks at him. He was locked in on Greathouse. I mean, that probably would have went for at least 30 or 40 yards, if not a touchdown, had he hit that instead, and that was right in front of him. But it's just, he's just got to, just the vision has got to get there a little bit more as just part of it.
How do you feel about this comment? Riley Leonard is not a true dual threat because he is not a threat to throw it.
I mean, right now, he's not, because even the passes that he's completing are all within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage for the most part. Again, like he would have had a completion to Jaden Greathouse that got called back. So like that, but it did get called back, so it doesn't count. But he's done just enough with the pass game. And the bottom line is, if you can't stop the run game, it doesn't matter at this point, right?
I mean, that's ultimately how I feel at the end of the day. Is he the best top tier passer in college football? No. Does he have the ability to be an average passer? Yeah. I mean, he's not going to be an extraordinary guy, but listen, I guarantee Miami of Ohio is going to watch that tape from this past week and say, how the hell do we get an extra hat in the box on Riley Leonard? Because he is not going to burn us this entire game. And so the more that the people come into the box, the more that passing game is going to open and become easier for Notre Dame. And that's the thing, is that's why I don't mind them running the ball and having the way that they dominated the Purdue game, is because so many teams are going to get over worried about the run. And if they can establish the run early on, Notre Dame's going to be able to start dropping those passes, over the top, across the middle in some nice man-to-man coverage, because they have to commit that extra defender to the box, pass defender to the box, and account for Riley Leonard. Because, I mean, it's obvious Riley Leonard can burn you with his legs. So the more that they can run the ball efficiently, the easier the passing game is going to get.
So two different things. Andre says, would you rather him throw down the field and get interception and cost him points, or just run the ball and throw checkdowns? Because the latter is working right now. Run the ball and throw the checkdowns. Absolutely. I mean, this is a fair point that Go Irish Nate is saying. It'll matter when they start playing real teams, but when do the real teams show up? My point would be they can win with this style of football basically against anyone the rest of the way on the schedule. That's anyone the rest of the way on the schedule. And what you would obviously hope is that you see a progression in the passing game along the way. I mean, obviously, if you're talking about the only reason, if you're talking about a college football playoff game, which is a long way away at this point, like in no world should that be what they're thinking about right now. Like their focus, obviously, they found it out against Northern Illinois, has to be week to week. And as Marcus Freeman was saying, how do we beat this opponent this week? That's what the game plan is about, because they found out the hard way that you can't overlook anybody. But there's nobody on the schedule that the exact same game plan that they had against Purdue shouldn't work against. I don't think. Do you?
I think no, I don't. And I think that not every run defense will be as bad as Purdue's. But again, if I'm Notre Dame, I know I'm a good running team. I know I'm a better running team than a passing team. So I'm going to come out and be run dominant until a team shows me that they can stop me in the run game. That's the part that I get so mad about. So what if Notre Dame's a run team right now? Like, do you remember when what is his name? Not McCoy, the Alabama quarterback that won a national championship. He did a Notre Dame game last season. I can't think of his name. Not a great passer, but they had a tremendous offensive line, a tremendous running game. They controlled they controlled, time of possession, those sort of things. And
somebody brought up games. Michigan. Somebody brought up last year's Michigan team. I mean, the key is you can't fall behind by a couple of touchdowns. Otherwise,
Yeah.
That's where you get burned. And that also means you have to sustain drives and you can't be 3 and out and stuff like that. But look at the defense that Notre Dame has. And again, when you pair that defense against anyone on the schedule the rest of the way, that shouldn't be an issue with, so that, again, that just means you can play this style. And look at what Purdue was doing the other day with, they had one safety back and then they were, doing all kinds of crazy stuff with him where he'd run up to the line of scrimmage and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, Jeremy says it worked against Purdue. It didn't even work against Northern Illinois. Well, the problem with your argument there, Jeremy, is
wasn't
the offense they ran against the offensive game plan they had against Northern Illinois was not the same offensive game plan they had against Purdue. Against Northern Illinois, it was very restrictive, very prohibitive, and it led to these conversations that Marcus Freeman has talked about and Riley Leonard. We just heard him talk about, like figuring out, okay, what do you like? What do you not like? Get rid of the stuff that you don't like. Do the stuff that you don't like. They were obviously trying to make Riley Leonard stay in the pocket as much as possible and work on, some of this stuff in the passing game. And his comfort is not standing in the pocket and being a passing, true pocket passing quarterback. That's not his game. His game is what we saw Saturday against Purdue. Two completely different game plans. And that's why it worked against Purdue and part of why it didn't work against Northern Illinois. There's some other things that, happen against Northern Illinois.
So Jason asked, well, what happens if a team stops your run game and you have to throw? What happens then? This is kind of what I was going to, because in order for a team to stop the run, they're going to have to load the box with an extra defender. So at that point, I would trust Notre Dame wide receivers man-to-man and allowing Riley Leonard. It doesn't have to be deep shots either. And what we'll get into more into the whiteboard a little bit later too is, in this style of offense, I don't know why it just hit me, but Notre Dame's best receiver should be its tight ends, short, big guys who Riley Leonard has, the ability to just kind of, throw it to a space and allow a bigger body tight end to wall off, some defensive backs, safeties, linebackers, and use a big catch radius in order to get the ball. But, if a team truly shuts down Notre Dame's run game, I would be willing to bet it's because they're committing an extra defender to the box, and then you're allowing your wide receivers and tight ends to play man-to-man. And at that point, if you can't beat them man-to-man, then you don't deserve to win. And then I would say it would be a serious issue at that point. But I think what frustrates me the most is a lot of Notre Dame fans are speaking on hypotheticals. I mean, what if Notre Dame just runs the ball like this the rest of the year? Are you going to get mad at them for having one of the most dominant run games in all of college football that they, should be utilizing essentially? And so, I think where I'm at is continue to run the ball and make teams stop you. And then we'll have the conversation if the passing game is really that bad, right? Because I understand NIU happened, but I think everyone learned from NIU, players and coaches alike. And I think if they get in that situation again, they'll have some pass plays that are better suited for Riley Leonard. So let's wait until we get to that situation where a team actually stops Notre Dame's run game and maybe Riley Leonard is starting to crack in the passing game a little bit before we start talking about all of these hypotheticals.
Yeah, I'm going to play another cut here from Marcus Freeman. And again, we played this yesterday, and I know not everyone was here yesterday. So let me see if I can find it. Well, I don't seem to have it right now. But basically, Ant VR is asking about, what kind of development have we? He says the pass game is developing ? I don't think we ever said that. He says, what sort of downfield development have you seen? Obviously, that's what still has to be worked on. Again, even though like a near miss here, a near miss there, it's not like they have never tried to throw the ball downfield. And someone, okay, here it is, Cage Kelly. I guess I'm confused on how we want to beef up the wide receiver room, but then bring in a non-throwing quarterback and try to recruit top receivers. Seems counterintuitive. Well, but your argument is also, there's a false narrative there because all you have to do is look at who Riley Leonard was 2 years ago at Duke. He was not a non-throwing quarterback.
3,000-yard passer,
Yes,
over 20 passing touchdowns.
Yes.
He can throw the ball downfield more than 15 yards. I'm sorry that some of your favorite, reporters have joked and mocked about Riley Leonard not being able to throw the ball 15 yards down the field, but he's a college quarterback. He won the deep ball competition at Peyton Manning's camp over the summer. He can throw the ball downfield. It's a matter of finding a mesh between Denbrock, Riley Leonard, and their running game and figuring out how everything synchronizes well together.
Yes. He is a dual threat quarterback. He's a true dual threat quarterback. For whatever reason, what's going on right now is not translating to what he has already shown he can be in the past. This was not a guy who was just a runner who they brought in here to run this offense. He was a guy who did both at Duke, but right now he's not doing it. And as we played with the comment from, with Riley Leonard there, and, as we played with some of the comments for Marcus Freeman yesterday, they're all getting on the same page and trying to figure out what Riley Leonard is most comfortable with and letting him use that in the offense. And I do think that as he gains more confidence, and part of that comes with his ability to use his legs and not just stand in the pocket, he's got to be able to use his legs as well. I think that we'll start to see the passing game develop as this season goes on. And, and again, does that answer the question today on September 17th, what the offense is going to be at the end of November when they go to USC to take on the Trojans to end the regular season, and potentially what comes after that, possibly what comes after that in terms of the college football playoff and what they would be against a better team? No. But, again, I don't think the goal is for them to remain stagnant and just be what they were out there against Purdue the other day. They found out that can work. They obviously want to be able to throw the ball better. They showed against Northern Illinois that that's what they were trying to be. They've got to find the right balance. And Riley, again, Leonard just has to find it between the ears and see it better on the field so that actually comes to fruition.
I enjoy that Notre Dame established the identity in this game. We knew that they were going to be able to run the ball, and they ran the ball. They could have ran the ball every play, in my opinion, and probably still won, 60-something to 7 at the end of the day, right? And that's my point, I guess, is until the team proves that they can stop your run, why do you care what other people think, or if you're one-dimensional? You can win the game if they're not going to stop your running backs, right? And that's Jadarian Price, Jeremiah Love, these we're talking about, and definitely Jeremiah Love, we're talking about a top 10 running back in a lot of major, statistics right now. And I know it's only, 3 games into the season, but he checks off, just about every box. And it's I saw something this weekend where there was some NFL, at least an NFL scout in attendance. And, they were asked, who are you here to see? And he said, simple, one player, number 4 for Notre Dame. Right. And so it's everyone in the stadium knows where the ball is going sometimes, and they still can't stop it. That just shows, how good Jeremiah Love is. And do I think that against some of these better teams, will the passing game have to open up? For sure. But it needs to be a passing game that can do just enough, because the running game is going to be the strong point of this offense the entire season. So to me, all they need to do is develop a passing game that's good enough situationally where they can pick up some first downs here or there, or get out of, maybe a bad situation, essentially.
Jeff, I don't completely disagree with what you're saying. He says the goal is not just to get to the playoff, but to win a game or two, and this current style will not get it done. Again, they found out against Northern Illinois that their focus can't be on getting to the playoff and winning playoff games in September. Right now, it has to be about what Marcus Freeman was talking about, because I did ask Freeman, and I can't find the cut. I apologize, because, again, I played it yesterday, but I asked him about how they can coax more of what they saw from Riley Leonard as a passer when he was at Duke out of him right now. And his basic answer was, what I said a couple of times last week. Stats are for losers. We're trying to win the game, and we're not going to worry about if, Riley Leonard is a great passer. All we want to do is win the game. That's what it comes down to. And if this style can win that, again, like look at what Michigan did last year and how many, do you have to complete some passes over the course of a game? Of course you do. But look at what Michigan did. Michigan took a bruising, again, if you want to call it old school, run it down your throat, ram it down your throat passing game, and turn that into a national championship last year. So I'm not going to sit here and say, the offensive line has got to get better as well. But when you've got the kind of dynamic running backs that they have, and you have a dynamic, I would still call him a dual threat quarterback, even though he hasn't shown the dual as in the passing side of it nearly as consistently as anyone wants to. But when you have two dynamic running backs like that and a quarterback like Riley Leonard, again, just look at what Michigan did last year. I think you can win with that style of football. I do. You still have to you still have to be able to hit key throws every now and then, do those kind of things, but I think you can. And again, will the passing game get better over the course of the season? I would hope so. There's no guarantee that it will, but I would hope so.
I mean, didn't Michigan, when they played Penn State last season, literally run the ball 0 times in the second half? Pass the ball 0 times in the second half. And I get it that that's a different machine, a lot of good, offensive linemen and running backs in that room. But I mean, I can honestly say I think Notre Dame's running backs are more talented than what they had. I think Notre Dame's offensive line has the ability to be, as physical as that Michigan offensive line. And so again, if it's working and they can't stop it, I don't care how you score or move the ball. It's a matter of winning games. And I think the passing game will continue to get better and develop as Riley Leonard gets confidence as a winner, first of all. And I think him running the ball is a big part of his confidence. I think it allows him to compete naturally and not worry as much at the end of the day.
Look, you've got 3 guys who can basically take it to the house on any play. They scored on runs of 70, 48, 34, and 28 yards offensively Saturday. Brian, Brian, I realize there's, Brian and Sarah, James Way, sarcasm dripping off this comment. We lost to NIU, but don't worry, we're dominating. We're not sitting here telling you the sky's not falling. We're not playing Baghdad Bob here. That's not what we're doing. Does the offense need to get better? Yeah, but look at who they're going to play. They're going to play Miami, Ohio this week. Are you going to tell me that Miami, Ohio should be any better defensively than Purdue was last week? Louisville next week. Louisville should be at least slightly better. They're not as good as they were last year, though. I think Louisville's going to come up with some stuff, to make Notre Dame have to counterpunch a little bit better. But Louisville and Georgia Tech are playing this weekend. I'm really
that's a good game for Notre Dame to watch.
To see that. Stanford has been decent so far defensively against the run. So I am kind of curious to see what that looks like when they play at least a little bit better teams over the next couple of weeks. But there's there's just nobody on the schedule that you lay it out and go, this team has a definite advantage with anything they're going to do defensively against what Notre Dame can offer offensively. Again, as the pass game hopefully improves and progresses over the course of the season. Leonard, or Love rather, by the way, right now, 6th in the nation, 8 yards a carry. Leonard, 5.3 yards per carry. Price, 7 yards a carry right now. So you've got 2 running backs, 8 yards a carry, 7 yards a carry, and a quarterback at 5.3 yards a carry. And if you adjust that for sacks, he's only been sacked 3 times, but Leonard is really probably around 6.5 yards per carry. If you adjust that and take the sacks, the yardage lost for sacks out of there. So 8, 7, 6. So anytime they, again, and think of all the explosive touchdowns that they've had so far.
Yeah. And, I see a lot of people talking in the chat. Well, NIU stopped the run game. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. Notre Dame didn't run the ball enough against NIU. That was their issue. They were afraid to continuously run the ball. They threw the ball.
And they obviously didn't run Riley Leonard with the exception of the first drive of the game when they scored a touchdown.
Right. And so against Northern Illinois, Jeremiah Love averaging 7.2, Jadarian Price averaging 6.0. Both those guys only had 11 carries. So again, Love had 11, Price had 4. So between the two, they only had 15 carries. Come on now. That's what I was talking about. Like if you take that game plan from Purdue and you copy and paste it into Northern Illinois, Notre Dame wins that game at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. Northern Illinois wouldn't have been able to gouge Notre Dame on first and second down in the run game because now they got to play catch up. They got to get into their passing. And what's Notre Dame's strongest, position group on defense is their secondary, especially when they know teams have to pass.
Marcus Freeman didn't come out and say we made a mistake with game plan. But again, when you hear him talk after the game the other day and some of his comments from yesterday as well about acknowledging the fact that they had to play more to Riley Leonard's strengths. I mean, that's basically saying that they made a mistake in game plan against Northern Illinois because they weren't playing enough to Riley Leonard's.
I mean, they openly admitted
we all saw it. We all, because again, he didn't run the ball with the exception of the opening drive. And they didn't, as a team, they didn't get the ball to Love and Price nearly enough either with the running game. I mean, and
that's where I think I get the most frustrated.
And again, I'm not defending everything that they're doing, but there was just a completely different game plan from Northern Illinois, to Purdue. And I don't think we need to keep revisiting Northern Illinois because everyone knows there were massive mistakes made, from mental approach to offensive game plan. There were, mistakes obviously made in the defensive game plan by allowing those 3 big explosive plays in the first half that totaled over 150 yards that led to 13 of Northern Illinois' 16 points. You eliminate just one of those explosive plays and Notre Dame wins the game. If Jaden Greathouse holds on to that pass, Notre Dame likely gets at least 3 out of that. They win the game.
Yep.
Yeah. Again, I'm not, sweeping everything under the rug, but there were big miscalculations just all over the place.
Honestly,
all they can do is learn from it, which they obviously have, but they have to continue to learn from it and not make the same mistake over again this year.
The last thing I'll say about Northern Illinois, because I agree, you just got to move on. But the number one thing that should have came out of that game is everyone knows Notre Dame used their mulligan. There's no more opportunities this season to play the way they did against Northern Illinois. What that should do, though, is put their backs up against the wall and a chip on the shoulder and light a little fire underneath their butt. Because a team that has to play knowing that they're fighting for their life every week on top of the embarrassment that they faced in that home game against Northern Illinois should provide enough accountability for the players and coaches to say, you know what, we're not playing like that, first of all, ever again. And second of all, we're going to come out and show you why that game will never happen again, essentially. So to me, that's the only positive thing that can come out of that NIU game.
Joe's ready to move on and talk Miami, Ohio. We're not necessarily going to talk Miami, Ohio, but Jesse has Whiteboard, and we're going to continue to talk about this Notre Dame offense and kind of some good things that we saw on Saturday and some things that they can do moving forward. Do you want to start with the 21 personnel? I think did we only see the 21 personnel once, the one play?
We saw it a sneaky time, and that's the one I'm going to go into right now, if you don't mind.
Yeah, do it. Do it, baby. Bring it on.
The issue is I have too many tabs up. So let me make sure I have the right one. All right, here we go. Okay, so you can see screen, right?
Yeah.
Let me hit full screen on this. Zoom in just a little bit.
I'm going to take us off so it fills it up.
There we go. All right, so this play, I don't know. Riley Leonard was still in the game during this. This is a sneaky 21 personnel. You have your tight end, let me set the scene here. Right hash, 2 wide receivers into the boundary, a wide receiver and a tight end to the field side, quarterback's in shotgun, and the running back is also to the field side here. So right now it looks like just regular old 11 personnel, but this is 21 personnel because Jeremiah Love is still split out here as the wide receiver, as the wide receiver, and you do have a running back on the field too in the backfield. So technically you have 2 running backs on the field. So I'm going to call this 21 personnel. And so pre-snap, Jeremiah Love goes in motion here. That's what this I don't want dash. That's what this line is right here. Jeremiah Love goes in motion. And then at the snap of the ball, Riley Leonard takes the ball and he just pitches it forward to Jeremiah Love. He ends up going across the formation. I think he ends up getting like a 10-yard gain off of this, right? So this is a nice little sneaky 21 personnel. You're getting your best playmaker of the ball on the perimeter. Love this play, right? It's basically a run, but again, since he's taking the snap and just kind of pitching it forward,
shovel pass.
Yeah, shovel pass is considered a pass. But the reason why I like this kind of play is because there's a lot that you can do to build off of it, and they haven't shown anything besides this play or besides what they did on this play. And the reason why I like this is because what you can essentially do is now that you've shown this at the snap of the ball, let's fake this little pitch to Jeremiah Love, and now he's running off into the flat, one-on-one, likely with a linebacker or a safety that's going to come downhill. And so this is very reminiscent of that first down that Notre Dame picked up against Texas A&M late on their last drive.
Yeah.
Exactly. Jaden Greathouse goes in motion. He gets one of these interior linebackers man-to-man. All Riley Leonard has to do is flip it out into the flat, and it's an easy yard gain, right? So that's one option off of this. You just have to fake it to Love, and now Love is sprinting across the formation, and he's likely going to get a one-on-one matchup, right? Let's say he fakes it, and he looks over here to the left, and he doesn't like it. Well, when I went back and watched this on film, guess what? Everyone is flowing this way, this way, this way, this way, this way, this way. All Riley Leonard has to do is fake the pitch, look over to the left like he's going to throw it, and then basically just run a counter back this way because who is over there to account for him, right? Everything is flowing this way, this way, this way. And then now you can use your running back as also a lead blocker out in front as well. So already we have 2 plays stemming off of this one play that Notre Dame showed on film. And a lot of teams are going to be, gearing up for that Jeremiah Love, basically jet sweep, shovel pass across the formation. But if you fake it to him, well, now you have a ton of options, coming off of it. And the last one that I would do here, let me hit undo a bunch of times. And again, when I was doing Whiteboard today, I came up with the realization Notre Dame just needs to find the way to pass to their tight end some more. And so that's where this last concept is going to go. Jeremiah Love coming across the formation, hike. You fake the shovel pass. Again, he's sprinting off into the flat. You would likely have this wide receiver run off the corner so this flat stays nice and wide open. And then off of that, I would have, Jadarian Price, basically sneak off into this flat. You're going to have this wide receiver run a streak as well. So that should leave this area open. But, what do we do? Again, we're showing everything flowing to the left, to the field side. Why not sneak our tight end, basically into a flood concept here and put this linebacker in a bind? Is he going to step down to the flat player or is he going to hang out in the hole and wait for the tight end? Either way, you have someone wide open, right? And so, again, this is another way of getting the defense to look one way. You've shown this on film now. They're going to be preparing for it. Okay, maybe let's slip a tight end back screen to the other side, right? Like a boundary screen now where he just releases off into the boundary and we just dump it down into him. And so, again, there's just so many concepts that I think you can use off of this one play, but it all starts with the effectiveness of Jeremiah Love coming out of the slot and what you've shown on film already.
Yeah, and the other 21 personnel play, I think the first one that maybe they slipped another one in, like you said, because Love was in the slot and I didn't see him over there, but they had both backs in the backfield on either side of Riley Leonard. They motion Price out to the left, and then they basically go quarterback counter, and Riley Leonard ends up running for 13 yards. And again, like when you've got all three of those guys on the field at the same time, you motion one out of the backfield, so you lighten up the box a little bit. You're just freeing up bodies, and all three of those guys are so good in space at making guys miss. But I would say, Riley Leonard is pretty exceptional at that himself, at making guys miss in the open field. What else you got?
Let me take this one down. Let me stop sharing. I like that transition you just gave me, because that was one of my other favorite plays from this weekend. It was basically, let me add this to the stage. Quarterback empty, long trap versus bear front. This was when Riley Leonard was about on the 5-yard line. And he goes empty here. And the reason why empty is so important is because you're clearing out the box as much as possible, right? You're trying to get a hat on hat for every offensive player, for a defensive player, right? So at first I was like, man, why are they going empty, right? Everyone should know basically now that if Notre Dame goes empty in the goal line, it's some sort of quarterback run. I think that's also what's going to help Notre Dame down the road, is because, again, they're going to have to commit an extra defender to the box. And all Riley Leonard has to do is fake a run and hit someone on a quick slant. But the reason why I like this play so much is because, again, this is a bear front. Purdue put 7 guys in the box. Notre Dame technically only had 6 guys in the box. So how do you counter that? You leave the end man on the line of scrimmage free, and you essentially just run away from him, right? And that's exactly what Notre Dame did. Is, the tight end here just gets up to the second level, and he's going to seal off this linebacker. The right guard is going to pull and kick out this end man of line of scrimmage, and then everyone else is just trying to wash this line the other way. And then Riley Leonard just finds a hole, and he finds a way to score. And I as simple as it sounds, it's a highly effective play, especially in the goal line when your quarterback can run the way he does. And I will say, though, the only thing that I was confused about with Riley Leonard, and it made me understand Riley Leonard more, I think he loves contact. And the reason why I say that is because when he ran through here, all he had to do was keep going this way, and he would have walked into the end zone. But instead, he tries to cut it inside, and he gives this linebacker a little stiff arm shoulder. I'm like, dude, you must love contact if you had this easy walk-in path this way. But you're like, you know what? I'm going to cut it back towards the middle here and run into, a linebacker.
Save that. That's our leadoff rapid fire topic, is Riley Leonard with some contact.
But this is what I mean. Notre Dame can get so creative in the run game, and that's fine, because they block really well, and they have a 3-headed monster of guys who can all run the ball effectively, right? And so the way that you get creative is you start showing stuff on tape. And now, let's say for whatever reason, another team brings a guy into the box to counter this, because now you have 8 guys in the box versus 6 Notre Dame offensive linemen. Okay, let's motion that running back, Love or Price, back into the backfield, and then basically get that running back one-on-one with the linebacker and just throw a ball into the flat, or, maybe even, I can't think of the route name, but the running back can also just go into the middle here and sit down, essentially, right? But that's the game that Notre Dame is going to be able to play, because they are so efficient in the run game. But I loved this counter basically against the bear front for a touchdown. It was pretty to see, and it really was unstoppable when you give someone like Riley Leonard the opportunity to kind of pick and choose, where he wants to run the ball. Mm-hmm. It's going to be hard, for a lot of defenses, especially in limited space like the goal line.
Good stuff there. Little Riley Leonard, easy touchdown run. Where are we going next?
We are going next. This is gonna make a lot of people mad, but I'm gonna have a bold statement off of this play. Let me go full screen. And let me share this. So, a lot of people are like, coming into the second half, what's the first thing that happens? Of course, Steve Angeli, throws a touchdown, right? Well, the only reason that this play looks so good is because Riley Leonard spent the entire first half setting up this play for Steve Angeli, right? So this is a play that Notre Dame ran in the first half. They ran off of it. But then in the second half, they decided, hang on, where did my – oh, I'm in the wrong mode. Just one second. Something's not going right. There it is. Telestrate. Okay. So Notre Dame in the first half decided to show, basically this long trap type situation here, right? The left tackle is pulling to the boundary side here, and the quarterback is basically handing it off in a stretch play. Essentially, this is basically the play that Jeremiah Love scored his first touchdown on, right? And so why is this important? Well, Notre Dame noticed the first time that they ran this, what happens? This linebacker is creeping down, and this safety is creeping down, right? And so they said, you know what, Steve Angeli, we're going to let, Riley Leonard set this play up for you. You're going to get an easy touchdown to start the second half here. And that's exactly what they did. They showed this same action. Left tackle is pulling into the boundary. They fake a handoff and show it like they were going to run it in the first half. And what happens here? Mitchell, or I can't remember who the tight end was. He basically goes. Cooper Flanagan comes up. He looks like he's going to block this end man in the line of scrimmage. He gets off of that. He gives the linebacker a quick set of hands. He releases there. And what happens? This linebacker's crashing down. This safety is crashing down because they've run the ball. They've shown this motion in the first half. I mean, I hate to say it, but I could have gone out there and completed this layup to Cooper Flanagan. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, Steve Angeli, first passing touchdown of the season. Okay, great. But, my only counter argument to that would be they could have let Riley Leonard run that play too. And he could have just as easily flipped that ball up there to Cooper Flanagan, and he walks in for the touchdown. But again, this is something that was set up because Notre Dame was running the ball so efficiently. They show the same pulling motion, they show the same stretch motion, and this tight end essentially just walks in, for a touchdown. And so earlier in the show when I was talking about, they got to find ways to get defenses to commit an extra player to the box. Well, that's what they did. They got this safety to come down. They got this linebacker to come down because they were so efficient in the run game. Naturally, these safeties and linebackers are going to start creeping forward because their defensive coordinator is yelling in their ear, why can't you stop the run game? And now all of a sudden you hit a quick play action and your tight end is wide open down the seam. So, I love this play. I was actually a little bit mad that Denbrock saved this for Angeli because it would have been a nice, easy layup touchdown for Riley Leonard. Of course, all I had to hear about on, all the social media is that Steve Angeli threw a touchdown pass before Riley Leonard. But again, I have news for you. Any of us could have gone out there and flicked that ball up to Cooper Flanagan. He was wide open, right? It's the first half that set up this easy play in the second half.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a mini tangent of mine.
I don't know what else to say. I mean, I can't disagree with any of it. So,
all right. So, last concept I have here is some 21 personnel.
A lot of 21 today. Okay.
Yeah, I like this because I think Notre Dame needs to find a way to get their best players on the field at the end of the day, right? And right now, Jadarian Price, Jeremiah Levin, Riley Leonard are your most dynamic players on offense. So what I'd like to see here, and this is kind of a combination, saw this play. I believe this is from Washington this week. Yeah, this is from Washington. But the reason why I like this is because of all the different kinds of variations you can run off of this. So the first one that I'm going to show here is what is considered a pop pass. And the reason why I like this is because, again, you can start to show some of that same motion that you've shown the entire game. Is you can get this left tackle to kind of pull. Your right tackle is going to block down. Your tight end is going to hit this end man on the line of scrimmage. And then you can basically fake an RPO, run play here, and then allow your wide receivers to come back on what look like bubble screens. And then you can basically do what we kind of did on that last play, right? You show this kind of bubble screen type action. You have 2 running backs in the backfield. Everyone thinks you're gearing up for a run. All you have to do is now release your tight end, down this seam a little bit, and he's going to be, in my opinion, wide open because, again, these corners are going to crash down on these bubble screens. Left tackle pulling here combined with this, read option here is going to pull in a lot of these these linebackers, defensive linemen. This tight end should just be able to sneak off past and at worst be in, basically man-to-man coverage. So again, kind of similar to the concept that we just showed, but on this one, these wide receivers are running kind of bubble screen. So again, it looks like a very kind of everything's at the line of scrimmage, and then your tight end is going to kind of sneak on past it, and that's why it's called, essentially a pop pass. But
Sure.
Let me clean this out and kind of show some of the other stuff.
And I mean, look, if you've got Price and Love on the field at the same time, like they're obviously going to draw a lot of attention from the defense. There's going to be a lot of other opportunities to make plays.
Exactly. Let me get rid of these real quick.
Sportsman Philly 22 has a question for you, Jesse.
Yeah, in the meantime, let me
Difference between a bubble screen and a normal screen play.
Bubble screen usually, and this I might be wrong, but my interpretation is bubble screen is, basically he's taking one step back and then he's there kind of right now. And in terms of a regular screen, I think those are more so kind of, downfield past the line of scrimmage. And you have on these bubble screens, it's essentially just, one-on-one with the wide receivers. On some of these other screens, you usually find ways, to get some of these linemen out in front. But I could be wrong on that. But that's always kind of been my interpretation. How would you answer that?
No problem with that.
Yeah, so I think the main thing is you're instead of gaining ground, you're actually running backwards in a sense, and that's why it's a bubble screen. You're not moving towards the line of scrimmage, you're moving away from the line of scrimmage. So that's what I would classify as a bubble screen. Sorry, I'm just trying to still get rid of all these lines.
Looks like you're adding more lines.
Yeah, it's like undoing my deletes, but I'm almost there. I just need to get rid of a couple more.
I think he's talking about the blockers, Tommy, not the guy taking the pass.
All right, so we just kind of showed one concept. Another fun concept that I would think would be great. You got to find ways to be quick hitting in this offense, essentially, right? Like we all know Riley Leonard isn't going to be this downfield thrower, right? And so what do? You find kind of action that's going to help out Riley Leonard to the best of its ability, right? And so basically, and I was listening to some of these games this week, and you just got to find ways to find holes in the field, essentially, right? Find zones in the field for these guys to settle down in. So I first like to basically get rid of a defender, streak out this outside wide receiver. Again, probably run some sort of post route here, or maybe a corner route here. But again, you're taking away both of these defensive backs, so they're out of the picture. And then again, when you're in 21 personnel and you have Price and Love in the backfield, I think you can get very creative in allowing them to be not only in the run game but also in the pass game. So again, I would show kind of like this double pull motion again into the boundary. I would release out my tight end, into the flat, or maybe he runs more of a, like an 8-yard curl route instead. And then you fake the handoff. Let's say this is Jeremiah Love. Well, then he goes out and he sinks into the flat, right? Or actually, you know what? Let's have a little bit more fun with this. After he fakes the handoff, he also is going to go into the flat, but then he's going to, wheel up the sideline, essentially, right? And so now you have you have this area in the field uncovered. You have your tight end sitting down, on a hook route or a curl route. And then you also have Price kind of leaking out here into the flat as well. And so, again, nice, easy throws. You show the pulling guard motion, the pulling tackle motion, and you just basically vacate, this entire side of the field, and you allow your running backs to fill it up and make a play in space. But again, I think a lot of what you can do can be accomplished by finding the way to incorporate your most explosive players onto the field at the same time.
Seems to be the way to do it. Got to see a little bit of it on Saturday against Purdue. Hopefully we get to see more of that going forward. A little bit of 21 sprinkled in. It's something that it seems like we're teased with all the time. But again, when you got the kind of athletes that you have with both Price and Love, man, it just like the possibilities seem endless when you get them on the field together. Jesse, are you ready for rapid fire?
I don't think I have any more left in me, but I always have something in me for rapid fire.
Got to bring some fire. Okay, so here are a couple comments from Riley Leonard after Saturday's win over Purdue when he ran for 100 yards and 3 touchdowns. Talking about contact.
How I play the game. I got no fear in the world of getting injured. I think the second you play hesitant is when things get scary. So I just play my game and trust in the Lord. Like, that's, I'm going to lower my shoulder. I'm going to get the first down for my guys. Obviously going to try to protect myself here and there. That's, I need to be on the field, but, whatever happens. I'm just going to play my game and not play hesitant.
So, Jesse, are you okay with Riley Leonard being so okay with having no fear of getting hurt when he's running the ball?
No, I'm not okay with that because we've seen how this offense can operate when his legs aren't, fully healthy or a full option, I guess you could say. I'm all for Riley Leonard running the ball, but you still have to find ways to take the least amount of hits as possible, whether that's getting, stepping out of bounds, sliding, because at the end of the day, no one is Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson doesn't take hits because he's so damn elusive all the time. It's so hard to tackle him. Riley Leonard's not that elusive. He's a bigger target. I get it. He likes contact, and situationally, it might call for that sometimes. But also, you have to understand the situations where you can just step out and save, some of those hits, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, like hearing your quarterback talking about, I've got no fear of any of that. I mean, on the one hand, you can't put him in bubble wrap, and you don't want him playing with the hesitant mentality, because that's when you are going to get hurt, is when you have that. For the most part, I mean, it's football. He took some contact. For the most part, I'm pretty impressed with the way he's able to avoid contact when he does get out of bounds and doing some of that kind of stuff. We have seen him slide, but there was the play that you talked about where like he's running in for a touchdown and he could probably just go in untouched, but instead he's kind of throwing his shoulder in there and all that kind of stuff. I mean, like I said yesterday, he did not play on Saturday like a quarterback who had any concern about an injured shoulder, which was obviously reported all week last week. Or, he didn't have any concern about his foot or his ankle or any of that. And he's not running like he has someone. You just want him to be smart. I think that's the biggest thing. But otherwise, I don't want a quarterback taking on linebackers and safeties one-on-one. That's the last thing that I would want. So there's a little concern there. But again, you can't play hesitant when you're playing football. You just got to play smart, I think is the best way that I can put it. So here's Marcus Freeman on safety, freshman safety, Kennedy Urquhart, who made his defensive debut against Purdue Saturday.
Yeah, he's a ball hawk. He finds a way to, find the ball, close space. He's a really good tackler. I challenged or even in special teams, can we get him out there more? I'm going to continue to challenge Kennedy to make sure you're a great practice player too, right? And those are things that are hard as a freshman to learn how to practice at that standard and then perform at the standard that he's performing at. But man, he is a really good player and made some critical plays for us on Saturday, and we'll continue to find ways to get him on the field.
Really made his presence known when he was able to get out there in the second half against Purdue. And the question that led to that response was, how do you use this guy more? What do you think? How could you use Kennedy Urlacher more?
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing, everyone loved them some Kennedy Urlacher this Saturday. That was definitely noticed, right? But I think the way that you utilize Kennedy Urlacher is, teams like Notre Dame, essentially, right? Teams that run the ball really well. And if you want to bring down a safety into the box that is, fast enough to get to the perimeter, but also physical enough to make, some of these tackles that he's making, that's when I think you could warrant, Kennedy Urlacher being on the field is early downs, 1st and 10, kind of some, running downs, because he's not great in coverage and he'll get better at coverage. So, the more you get into 2nd and long, 3rd and long is not really ideal for Kennedy Urlacher right now. But like Marcus Freeman said, I think you have to find a way to get him into as many special teams as possible, because he's a heat-seeking missile. And then when you are playing teams like maybe even like a triple option type offense, someone that you'd want to be, have in there at safety, because Xavier Watts, as good as he is, he's a better coverage safety than he is a tackling safety. And that's when you would want to use somebody like Urlacher.
Yeah, and that's what came to mind as well when they go out there against the triple option, because there's always going to be a couple of guys on defense who are going to start in those games against the option who you're not going to see in other games. And when you think about the freshman redshirt rule and all that different kind of stuff, it would make a lot of sense for a guy like Urlacher. That's what they're going to have to balance, because Marcus Freeman mentioned special teams. If you just want to go ahead and burn a year of eligibility, then I would have him on every special teams that you could, based on the kind of just, that heat-seeking missile kind of approach that he has to the football. The thing is, we saw him give up a big pass play as well out there. So how much safety, actual safety he's going to play other than against either option or get out there on special teams, that would be the question. But if you're not worried about using up a season of eligibility, he makes sense to have on every special teams out there. But that will be the question that they've got to balance. But you do get the 4 games during the season, and you get the bowl game as well. So he definitely made a name for himself pretty quickly, but I think you expect it as well. He's only 5'11", because that's part of it as well. Would he potentially be a rover candidate going forward? Would you want a rover that size? Would you want him a little bit more length?
I mean, his dad, Drew Tranquil, they both started off as safeties who
exactly,
basically got – here's my philosophy on that. If a guy is fast enough to play at that position, basically play at a beefier position, then all you got to be concerned about is, are they physical enough? And he's definitely – physical enough. So if you can combine that physicality and then top tier speed, if he did end up playing linebacker, because again, that's what his dad did. His dad was a safety in college, right? And so that's the trend to me is you start off as athletic as possible, and then you get molded into a role that might fit you a little bit better.
Fill in the blank. It's blank that Jeremiah Love is only averaging 11.6 carries per game, but is currently on pace to run for over 1,100 yards in a 12-game regular season.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. When you start looking at, Jeremiah Love averaging, just over, we'll call it 12 carries a game, but he's still on pace for, 1,100 yards. That's just elite running back skills. And I think that goes to show, why Notre Dame should continue to progress his workload throughout the season, essentially, right? I know you don't want to give, a guy this heavy workload and wear him down, but you got to find a way. I would love to see Jeremiah Love, run the ball 15 times a game, essentially, right? And then Price, between Price and Leonard, they can split the other 15 essentially, right? And so if you can get to 30 team carries, I think that's ideal for Notre Dame. But no matter what number you get to, Jeremiah Love should be the guy that's taking on half of those carries, essentially.
Yeah, Jeff says he needs close to 20 carries a game, and he definitely needs more. And we talked last week, like
There's
how
a
many
balance, though.
Yeah, how many combined carries do Price and Love need? I still think the combined carries need to probably be somewhere between 20 and 25. They probably, like if last week's game was closer, they probably would have ended up there. But don't forget, like, look at Riley Leonard and how he factors into it as well. The fact that Riley Leonard had 10 or 11 carries of his own, I mean, that's going to figure in there as well. It's going to do nothing but kind of save everybody's legs and all of that kind of stuff down the stretch. But it's amazing that this is the pace that he already has now, considering really the relative limited number of touches that he's had per game. Like this guy, there's still another level, I think, for this guy to go to. Like he could easily approach 2,000 yards if you double, not even double his carries, just like 1.5 times.
Let me ask you a question. It was something I thought about over the weekend, and you have better recall. You've been around longer. You can go down the list. Have you ever seen someone make guys miss the way that Jeremiah Love makes guys miss? Like you watch that touchdown run, he put that linebacker in skates, man. Like,
yep.
And it feels like he does that at least one. Like, if he gets to the second level, defenses are screwed because he just makes. I've never seen a guy who can open field the way he uses that jump cut and that cut to the outside.
Right.
Every time I'm like, man, this guy's gonna get caught because you never want to run horizontally, but he shows so much speed because he never gets caught. He makes that cut. And he's just gone. But I can't remember a Notre Dame running back that makes guys miss like he does in the open field and still has the speed to accelerate from everyone.
I mean, like the closest thing that I could think of is like maybe a Darius Walker, but I mean, we're around what, 20 years at this point, 18, 20 years, maybe not quite that long, 15 to 18 years since Darius Walker, but even him, it's just not the same. There has not been anyone in recent memory like Jeremiah Love. Kyron Williams was not that kind of guy. Obviously, Andrick Estime was not that kind of guy. But
Love is so, like, he's still thick at the same time. Like he's he's a strong dude, but he still has the speed. Like I've never seen the combination of strength, speed, and just the ability to just juke the hell out of people. It's insane.
No, I agree with what people are saying about Darius Walker's speed, but you're talking about the ability to make him miss. And that's all I was, it was like just that, and again, like, Irish AJ Riddick in the open field for sure, but he wasn't always able to get to the open field, even with the pretty good offensive line. So
I think the best comparison, and this bodes really well for Jeremiah Love, I think he looks a lot like Bijan Robinson, a guy that's really fast, really able to cut through the hole, and can go out and catch balls as well. I was listening to the Manning cast last night, and they were saying before the game, Kirk Cousins was talking to him and said Bijan could go out there and line up at wide receiver and run routes just like any of the other wide receivers could. And I think that's something that Jeremiah Love can do. And I appreciate the coaches for working that into Jeremiah Love's game, because that's only going to help him at the next level. These NFL teams don't want a running back that can just run the ball. They want a guy who can catch the ball out of the backfield as well.
Absolutely. Michael Parks, Alvin Kamara is a comparison that I've used.
Just a little bit bigger.
Yep. Exactly. And, this is – Love is still relatively young in his career, but, again, it's, like I don't disagree with what Tom is saying. Love the best tailback talent Notre Dame since Pinkett in the early 80s. I mean, I would still put Waters in that category in the early 90s. And I know I saw somebody say Ricky Waters, but, you're going back 30-plus years even to get to that point. But there's definitely – and I think Ricky Waters was the comparison that Al Golden and some other people were talking about coming out of camp. I mean, he's definitely just a different kind of back than anything we've seen at Notre Dame in a long time, just in terms of the
So-
overall athleticism and ability and speed and just the whole package.
So my question off of that is, and sorry not to hijack your whole rapid fire here, but why are people so upset with an offense that could run through someone like Jeremiah Love, right? Like, again, I know we don't need to like pass the ball a ton, but like when you got someone like Jeremiah Love who could literally make everyone miss and he's got top end speed, like, I don't know. To me, it seems simple. Run your offense through Love, and until that fails, then you got to have a plan B, right? But
I
you only need
agree.
a plan B if plan A is going wrong.
I absolutely agree. And I think we've kind of said that you've got to start running this offense through those running backs. And, because the other part of it is still, don't forget about Jadarian Price, because he's pretty darn good too. And he showed it the other day, the way he
That's
ran
what's
around
crazy.
and
It's like,
threw
oh, Love
everybody.
needs a break. Here we go. Jadarian Price, 55-yard touchdown run.
They relax a little bit. 24 comes in, and the next thing you know, 70 yards, he's in the end zone. So, yep. So Notre Dame plays its second MAC opponent, of course, this weekend. The second MAC opponent of the season. It's the first time Notre Dame has ever played two MAC teams in the same year. My question for you, would you buy or sell Notre Dame just scheduling more mid to lower tier Power 4 teams like the Purdues of the world in the future instead of these MAC level opponents?
Oh, I would definitely like that, because I think you can bring back, some old rivalries. I think you can establish some new rivalries if you do this thing regionally. Find like teams within a certain kind of radius that you want to maybe start some new traditions, rivalry type situations with. But to me as a fan, the thing that makes me say just schedule these Power 4 teams is when something like NIU happens, it just doesn't look nearly as bad, because you're not losing to a MAC team. You're still losing to a Power 4 team. And even though, the Power 4 team might be worse than the MAC team, on paper, it looks better because there's no MAC attached to their name, essentially. And I just got to get this off my chest before I forget too. How about Toledo and what they did to Mississippi State this weekend? Everyone wants to talk about what happened to Notre Dame. A MAC team went on the road and completely destroyed an SEC team.
Yep.
Destroyed an SEC team, but no one will want to talk about it because I don't know if it was because Notre Dame was ranked so high and Mississippi State is down this year. It doesn't matter to me. Toledo walked in there and waxed.
When you're the fifth ranked
State.
team, when you're the fifth ranked team of the country and you lose to a MAC team at home, and especially if you're Notre Dame, that's going to get some attention, But you're absolutely right. It was a blip that Toledo went to Mississippi State and just beat down them the way they did at Mississippi State. This was another buy game. They only made a couple $100,000 less to go to Mississippi State for that game than Northern Illinois made by coming here to Notre Dame. And again, like I don't think that you're not going to have to do a buy game for a Big 10 team or a Big 12 team if you're Notre Dame, as long as you're playing a home and home with them. And I think that maybe they don't want the home and home. I don't know, but it just feels like it makes a lot more sense. I know that clip of Urban Meyer talking about the scheduling and all that stuff and playing the, around the quadrants of the country, and that kind of went viral a little bit last week. And some Notre Dame people were talking about it, but it's right. Like Notre Dame didn't used to play MAC teams until Brian Kelly came to town, and they kind of softened things up. And that was kind of the response to everybody else was playing FCS. So Notre Dame added these MAC teams and you kind of soften things up a little bit. I think that there would
Kelly
be
effect.
Yeah. I mean, I think that just from a lot of things, like you said, it's a lot easier to stomach if you're actually playing a Power 4 team and you do happen to lose that game. And it also looks better on your resume if you're at least playing a Power 4 team and you win that game. So it just feels to me, and then from a TV standpoint, I think it also makes sense having, they are going to play Indiana here in a few years, but whether it's Indiana or Purdue or, like say you go to the Big 12 and it's a Colorado or an Iowa State or, even a Baylor, whoever it happens to be. They tried Cincinnati, so I obviously won't use that one, but it just seems like it makes more sense to go that route. Like there would be a lot of positives going that direction.
Well,
as
also,
opposed
it's
to
just
where
like,
they
are you mentally setting yourself up for failure? Because look at these teams Notre Dame's lost to. This goes back to when Brian Kelly was still here. You got, Cincinnati, Marshall, NIU. Like, these are all, I feel like these are preventable situations because, again, you put these teams on the schedule and inevitably you're like, well, we don't got to practice as hard this week. It's NIU, right? It's Marshall. It's, XYZ. And I think that's the other side of it is I think you're mentally letting your team down because they feel like they don't have to prepare as hard at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's very true. That's a great point. I mean, look at the trap that they fell into by going through that. And I don't think you have that if you're playing a Power 4 team instead of a MAC team. So Colorado's Travis Hunter is averaging around 130 snaps a game, playing both cornerback and receiver. That's cornerback, defensive back and wide receiver for the Buffaloes. What's more likely? Hunter wins the Heisman Trophy this season, or he opts out before the season's over?
I would say that it's more likely that he wins the Heisman Trophy. I think that Travis Hunter is the ultimate competitor at the end of the day. I think he's a guy that he loves football so much that he's like, Coach, I can play both ways for you, right? And so I think he's much better defensively than he is offensively. I think that, he does enough offensively because they kind of, need him essentially, some wide receiver depth. But he's a much better corner than he is wide receiver. And I think that's where I don't think he'll be a two-way player in the NFL by any means. I think he'll be a corner in the NFL. But, his combined, offensive and defensive performance, I think would have him on a faster track to the Heisman than it would him kind of calling it quits by the end of the season.
Yeah, but what's going to happen when they're 4-6 here in a couple of months? And is Travis Hunter as great as he is as an athlete? And I agree, Ryan, he is incredible. Is he going to want to continue to play 130 or whatever snaps per game for a team that's got that record, and with a team that's 500 or even below by the middle of the season? Who's going to vote for him as great as he is? I still think you have to play you have to be on a team that's good enough. It's Paul Hornung is still the last guy to win a Heisman Trophy for a team with a losing record, and that's what we're going on 70 years ago or something like that, 60 plus years ago that happened. So I think it's more likely that he opts out. Like he'll end up playing on a team that's 500 or worse, middle of the season. If he doesn't get injured, he's going to be fatigued. Is he going to be able to keep up that level of play? Why would you want to keep doing that for a 500 team when you probably got a pretty good chance to end up getting drafted in the first round? So I don't think he's going to win the Heisman because I just don't think that he's going to get enough votes playing for Colorado, regardless of how great an athlete that he is. Fair or foul? Georgia falling to number 2 in the AP poll this week after a narrow win at Kentucky over the weekend.
That is completely foul. I mean, look at Texas's schedule. They played Colorado State, Michigan, and UTSA. I think that's University of Texas San Antonio, right? Like, their best win is Michigan, and I mean, it's not nearly the same Michigan team as last season. You look at Georgia's schedule; they beat Clemson, Tennessee Tech, and Kentucky. I would say that Clemson and Michigan are probably even teams this season, and Georgia dominated that Clemson team at the end of the day. And I just think, honestly, strength of schedule through 3 games, Georgia's had a tougher strength of schedule than Texas, right? And so, it just feels very gimmicky, but Georgia plays Alabama this week. They take care of business. I have no problem with them basically jumping Texas essentially and claiming that number 1 spot again, because I mean, that's what should happen, right? Like, you set the precedent that if you don't play as good as football, or you maybe play a lesser opponent, but you still win, you can drop. Well, Georgia beats Alabama this weekend, the number 4 team in the country. They should jump right back to 1.
I mean, look, they cast votes for this. It's not like there's, some guy sitting in his basement going, I'm going to make, Texas number 1 instead of Georgia this week. People sent in their votes. They got 22 more votes. So, I mean, I think it's fair. What did you say earlier? In the show, it's still the first couple weeks of the season, and everybody talks about how much do the polls actually matter at this point in the season. You're essentially kind of jockeying for position right now. Everyone's still figuring out who they are. I was a little surprised. Georgia does always struggle when they go to Kentucky, so I was a little bit surprised, that they kind of got knocked off the perch there in the AP. They're still number 1 in the coaches poll, though. So a lot of season to be played. I think it's completely fair for right now. Like I don't doubt what you're talking about with strength of schedule and all that kind of stuff.
It just feels very nitpicky, Like this is why I don't think that we should have polls the first month of the season. Just again, the polls exist because of they can market these matchups of 2 versus 10 and blah 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 to get more eyes on the TV and get more viewers and all that stuff. But for it up to me, you just wouldn't rank them until the first 4 weeks are done, because you don't know who truly who a team is until they start going out there and putting data points. So someone said in the chat, it doesn't really matter until the last week of the season, and that's kind of how I look at it too. All of it's just numbers until you get down to the very end.
That's what I'm saying. You're jockeying for position. DK says they matter because they sway the committee while they're watching the games. I mean, I feel like if they're using the same committee that they've used for the 4-team playoff, then I feel like that committee has pretty much done what they've wanted. They've completely disregarded the AP and the coaches polls in the past. You've gained a fan in Ryan Roberts, by the way. So.
Me and Ryan Roberts have always been besties. No one just knows.
Yeah, you guys need to do your own show. Like, come up with a catchy name or something. Swing that. Fill in the blank. It's blank that the ACC has reprimanded Pitt head coach Pat Narduzzi for saying, quote, "Wow, we beat West Virginia in the backyard brawl, and we beat the officials too in one game." End quote.
It's about damn time, because if there's one thing that Pat Narduzzi is good at is whining to the world about how he's at a disadvantage because of the officials and because of the portal and because of the NIL, and everyone's against Pat Narduzzi at the end of the day. So, I think it's about time. I mean, $5,000 is nothing to someone like him.
Yeah,
right?
and they fined the school $5,000 too.
Right,
They didn't even
and so
fine him. So
it's just. I wish it would have an effect and it would get him to shut up, but it's not. He's just going to be, continuously the same old Pat Narduzzi at the end of the day. But I think it was funny that he finally got a slap on the wrist. We're like, dude, we've probably given you 10 warnings at this point. Can you just shut up? Like, we're just tired of
it. John, our Pittsburgh guy, not happy about Pat Narduzzi getting the fine. I think he's a dual Pitt fan, if I remember right. But come on, man. Like, if there's one thing we know about Pat Narduzzi is the dude likes to complain out loud to anyone who will listen to him about anything. So I'm completely not shocked by the fact that Narduzzi finally got slapped around a little bit. It's like, look, you can't complain about the officials. How about this, Pat? You won the freaking game. Why are you whining about calls that you didn't get during the game that you won, by the way? But that's how Pat Narduzzi rolls. He's always got to roll in that direction.
Did you see the Mike Bray post about it?
I didn't. Stymie said he had a great tweet about it.
Yeah, so he says, Pitt football coach gets $5,000 fine from the ACC for talking about the refs. Mine was $20K, question mark, exclamation point. And again, I feel like Mike Bray doesn't really complain to near the level that Pat Narduzzi is always, running his lips.
But I think that was after the Florida State game, 3 or 4 years ago, is the one that he's referring to, when he got smacked around a little bit. And Bray, like, but that's a great point. Narduzzi bitches and moans all the time. Bray very rarely would complain about that kind of stuff publicly, and they hit him with $20,000, which really backs up, what Bray was talking about, because it was basically about, hey, come on, we're Notre Dame, we're in the league too, that kind of stuff.
The thing that I think is, yes, does bad officiating warrant criticism? 100%, right? But to me, it's kind of like the boy who cried wolf, because Pat Narduzzi cries wolf every single game. And so it's like, it gets to the point where it's like, wow, was there bad officiating, or is Pat Narduzzi just got a thorn stuck up his butt today?
Right.
Like, which one is it?
And
like,
it's usually the latter.
Correct.
That's usually the way it
So now
goes.
I can't take anything seriously from him, but that's his own fault because he wants to complain every single time.
Yes, exactly. Sloppy Joe says he would have complained if there was a subtle breeze. I don't think you're probably wrong there. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for tonight. Great whiteboard stuff earlier tonight, Jesse, and great conversation, great input from the chat earlier as we were talking about the offense. We'll see where it goes. I mean, not perfect by any means.
Better.
But if you can't, it was better. And if you can't be happy about scoring 66 points against a Big Ten team, I don't think you're ever going to be happy this year. So crack a beer and see how it goes, I guess. Tom, thank you very much for the compliment. We will take them anytime. Stymie, hit that like button before you leave, and we will talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.